Hello, I'm Annette Kirkland, and welcome to Beyond the Gates. In this season, we are talking about leading with innovation. Today, we're going to be speaking with Mr. George Ohanian, Director, Warfighter Support Directorate, U.S. Army Geospatial Center, otherwise known as AGC. And we're going to be talking about BuckEye's Edge, mapping for mission success. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I am super excited to have you on the show. And you're like the first episode of season 5.
Oh, gosh. I hope I don't bring the baseline.
No pressure whatsoever, but just really excited to have you on the show this morning. And one thing that we always like to know is who we're talking to and a little bit of background. So, sir, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Again, George Ohanian. I've been with the Army Geospatial Center about 11 years. In terms of overall background, I have an undergrad degree from the University of Maryland in engineering, and then a graduate degree from George Washington University in information systems. And I'd like to plug those two universities because I think education is a foundation for expanding your mind and allowing you to think critically, which is a key role in all of the things that we do to support our warfighters. Prior to AGC, I spent some time with DISA, the Defense Information Systems Agency, working on a couple of classified programs that were focused on command and control. I spent a considerable amount of time in the Pentagon working for the Army G3, the Army CIO, and prior to that, which is a little different than most of my counterparts, it was all industry. That included satellite companies, aircraft companies, universities, for-profit kind of institutions. So I think what's a little different about me is that I have a mix of traditional for-profit background and the last few years have all been focused on the military. So I think I'm in a good place right now. I'm married to Dr. Michelle Ohanian. She doesn't know how to fix a broken bone, but she can do a considerable job on a sentence. I have, because she's in an ed department at Mount St. Mary's, I have 2 daughters, 25 and 22, and I am loving the job that I have here right now because I work with some of the best people that I've ever worked with in my entire career.
That's fabulous, because one thing I always tell people is that, and I always talk about it on the show, and people probably get tired of it, is that everyone that we interview here for the show, you can't teach passion, and everyone is so passionate about what they do. So that's great to hear. So here we go. So can you also tell us a bit about what is the Army Geospatial Center and the directorate that you lead?
Great, excellent question to start with. So the Army Geospatial Center used to be a component of tech. So quite a few years back, it was part of the lab. And I believe around 2002, 2003, it separated from the lab and became its own entity, primarily focused on delivering geospatial products to the warfighters. And when I say geospatial products to the warfighters, what I really mean in plain English is the data sets that are consumed by Army systems that greatly depend on a map. So the data sets that we curate, that we disseminate, that we oversee, that we manage, that we make in a standard shareable format are those things that your geospatial engineers consume inside their mission command systems to create maps as an underpinning for the decision space. I think a good analogy would be that when you and I or others drive somewhere, we generally turn on a map, whether it's a Google map or whether it's Waze or regardless of what app you use, that map provides you with features, details, and attributes and information so you can make decisions about where to go. Is there traffic? Do I need to stop somewhere to get gas? Those kinds of things. Well, that's very much the same for the Army systems. They need to be able to create maps in real time with as much current information as possible, but fit for an Army mission. A lot of the units really don't care about where the Starbucks are. They really want to know other pieces of information that's relevant to the type of vehicle they're driving or maneuvering on and how to get from here to there, how to cross a bridge safely, how to do routing, how to prepare for fires, and those kinds of things. And I don't mean your forest fires. I mean when we use munitions type equipment. So we are the entity that basically does the engineering, the architecture, the standardization, the insurance of interoperability, the certification of systems, and anything else related to making sure that data that's delivered to a tactical unit is fit for the purpose it's intended to be used. We've been here quite some time. We have two primary directorates. One is mine, the warfighting side, and the other is what I call the heavy intellectual lifting, which is SASD. They're the ones that focus on architecture, standards, policy, governance, that kind of stuff. And on my side of the house, what we focus on is the delivery of the actual brick, which is a hard drive or downloadable data set that will seamlessly work inside a tactical level platform to be able to create that rich, robust map, if you will, I'm oversimplifying it, for decision makers to lay problem sets against to determine line of sight, flood zones, analysis of slope so that a vehicle can maneuver on it. So combined, we have an ecosystem from cradle to grave to deliver not just capabilities, but all the stuff on the back end to make those capabilities work regardless of the platform they're delivered to. I will tell you, last year, we put out 1.1 petabytes of data. So what does that really mean? So if you take the Library of Congress and all its holdings, that is more data put out than what the Library of Congress holds. We put out 1,300 what we call bumpy maps, which are plastic 3D relief maps, because contrary to popular belief, everyone doesn't just use a phone to look at a map. Some people still want printed products. Some people want them in different formats. So we pride ourselves on being responsive to the warfighters, giving them products that are compliant with the systems they're fielding with, and more importantly, making sure those products are all interoperable with each other, regardless of what tactical echelon they operate in.
So, sir, what is HR3D and how does it pertain to your organization's mission?
HR3D, that acronym stands for High Resolution Three-Dimensional Data. So if you look at today across the gaming world or the mapping world, you'll find that everyone wants to see things in a three-dimensional view. That three-dimensional view is how we humans interact with our ecosystem and the geography around us. So primarily, traditionally, most of the views that you look at on a screen or the interaction that you have with a map product is in two-dimensional. There is a way to do fake three-dimensional, we call it 2.5D, but where we're really going after is the 3D aspect, which is the holy grail for heads-up displays or small handheld devices. So you can actually look and interact with that environment, not only before you go there, but to know what's around the corner. So HR3D is the underpinning data construct that allows us to fuse these data sets together to create that three-dimensional view. And I will tell you, it is not something that is easily done because it greatly depends on high resolution data, as well as different types of data sets, not just imagery, but LiDAR and other data sets to create that three-dimensional view. You know, if you ever go to the movies and you wear a set of glasses to see 3D, that is not something done easily. It requires a lot of compute, and it requires a lot of data sets and a lot of subject matter experts. And you know, Hollywood has endless budgets to create these incredible movies to give it to you in 3D. We have limited budgets because we're working with taxpayer dollars. More importantly, scale is really relevant for us. So what we're trying to do is create products for the future force, manned or unmanned, and do it at scale in some economical way so that we could deliver to them the HR3D products that they need. And so with that, our goal is to become the producer of choice of 3D data for all the warfighters, regardless of the system they use. And we're in that transformation phase right now. So HR3D is our catch-all phrase for kind of explaining what we're really trying to do with the geospatial data sets.
Well, and that's a great segue into the next question. So what is the BuckEye program, and why is it important to AGC and the Army?
So BuckEye has started initially in Iraq. It has just celebrated its 20th year anniversary. And so when it first started, it was a big pod with a lot of cameras that was mounted on a helicopter to fly over areas of interest prior to conflict, to capture that data and then turn that data into a map product that you could put out at the tactical level. Over the years, BuckEye itself has progressed considerably to go from a box on the bottom of a helicopter to a box inside an aircraft, primarily dependent on what commercial industry has to offer so that we aren't spending precious dollars coming up with one-off platforms that are only usable by the military. So since its evolution, we've gone from a helicopter to a turboprop to a jet. Today, as I talk to you, we have 7 turboprop aircraft, and these are aircraft that are fairly large, that could hold probably a dozen people if they were a commercial airplane, that have holes in the bottom of them, that we have sensors inside that can look down and be able to capture data about what's beneath it. The turboprops operate worldwide in every combatant command, and they operate up to about 20,000 feet. What's good about the turboprops is that they can fly when the weather is bad. They can fly below the clouds and still map. These aircraft can also still map at night because the LiDAR is really tuned for night more than it is day. Mm-hmm. From there, we went to a jet. So currently in our fleet, we have 3 jets. They're Gulfstream jets. The last 2, the most recent ones, are the ones that we're really most proud of. Those jets are sitting in St. Louis right now, getting ready to deploy later this year. One will go to AFRICOM and one will go to INDOPACOM. They have roughly a 7,500-mile range, and they are equipped with just about every sensor we could come up with for mapping. They have synthetic aperture radar in them. They have an MX-25, which is a full motion video. They have 3 different types of LiDAR. And the LiDAR that we're deploying in those aircraft will allow us to look into the water and see about 15 meters down so that we can identify obstacles for littoral operations. At the same time, we've got what we call a FOPEN, foliage penetration LiDAR, built by a set of folks who started their own company near MIT. And these are really, really super smart folks. But that system leverages also some of the capabilities, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, that ERDC developed. That allows us to look in triple canopy, meaning that when you go to areas in INDOPACOM or South America or AFRICOM that are heavily wooded and you can't see through the woods with a traditional aircraft, this LiDAR capability allows you to saturate the canopy to the point that you can look beneath the canopy. It also has many other sensors, and it uses a commercial transport layer like Starshield. So that is the most modern capability that is out there to date for wholesale mapping of just about anything, to include signals. Those jets will deploy later this year, and that gives us a comprehensive portfolio of BuckEye capabilities that can operate anywhere around the world to map just about anything that needs to be mapped before we can't map. We're very proud of those, and we've I think, mapped a little over 4 million square kilometers of the Earth. Now, what's important about the data sets is those are data sets that you cannot get yet from satellite.
Right.
So our imagery from those aircraft is as good as what you would get with a drone that can fly at 400 feet up. It's just we do it on a very large scale. So a traditional turboprop will map 500 square kilometers per flight, where the jet can do a couple of thousand square kilometers per flight. No drones are capable of doing that, and no satellite to date is capable of doing what these aircraft can do in terms of the fidelity level from space. There is no space-based LiDAR to date, It's only available on aircraft. So we think we've pushed the envelope, working with our partners at ERDC and commercial industry to develop technologies that we consider commercial that can go in these aircraft that are plug and play regardless of where we operate.
So, how did this innovative asset come about, and what recent advancements have taken place to increase its capability?
So how did it come about? There was a need initially, 20 some odd years ago, to be able to look from the sky down using an unclassified capability that allowed us to collect data to create unique geospatial products that were also shareable with our partner nations. We don't go to war just by ourselves. We go to war with our friends, and in order to do that, we need to share data with them. The classified platforms have considerable challenges in their ability to share data with other partner nations, sometimes to include limiting shareability within our own infrastructure. So the decision was made many years ago to use an unclassified platform where you could take that data and put it in a classified system, if you will. But more importantly, I was able to now share that data with the UK or the Australians or any of our Five Eye partners. So that's what kind of drove it to begin with. And then as we started to see the success of the output of these products, meaning the demand started to rise, what they started using it for started expanding. So it was everything from looking down and where's the enemy and where's the reservoir of water and what do the roads look like, to, hey, I could use this for other things like training or collaboration for posturing or planning or logistics or even engineering support. It started driving some of the advancements that were needed. Rather than trying to couple those advancements under complex S&T efforts, the initial thrust was to look around to see who's doing what in this kind of environment. And lo and behold, a lot of labs, not just within ERDC, but also DevCom, AFRL, NRL, were doing haphazard bits and pieces of work to get at better mapping. So we coupled our needs with some of what industry is doing, with what some of these labs are doing, and started harvesting through industry capabilities that were advancing the platform. So a couple of the companies, Leica is a big company. If you don't know that company, they're big into optics. Mm-hmm. They are builders of some of our technology harvested from some of the labs. The FOPEN capability that I talked about a few minutes ago really was premised on a set of activities done by the Geospatial Research Lab. A lot of credit goes to Ryan Kirkpatrick and his team from a system called High Castle that really was a cutting-edge technology to do long standoff LiDAR capture. Mm-hmm. And so working with Ryan and his folks and this little company called 3DEO out of Massachusetts, who had built similar prototypes, but for flying lower, we were able to create the FOPEN solution that is going to fly in the jet at 30,000+ feet at 400 knots. There is not another system out there. We would not have been able to do that had we not been able to leverage what some of the labs are doing and whatnot. The cameras that we use are made by a company called Phase One. Phase One basically kept building better cameras as we flew higher. They recognized there was a place in the market for this technology, and so as they proliferated their technology, it was commensurate with how much higher we wanted to fly. The MX-25, it's a full motion video, is developed by the Harris Corporation. Harris, it's their most advanced ball, that is our articulated ball that allows you to look where you need to look. But they are embedding it with their AI capabilities because they want to do a proof of concept on identification of things that they can see with the camera. For an example, they can say, oh, we're looking for 42-foot sailboats. And as we're flying around and we're looking at things in the water, their AI can help extrapolate that. So we wanted to take advantage of the advancements being made by the labs. And ironically, it matched our capability progression and our mission space very well. Sometimes it was pull, sometimes it was push, but it's really based on what we could adopt before we could buy, before we had to create. So I will tell you, we're very proud of the faux pen capabilities, the camera systems that we put in there, and as important, and this is not to be underestimated, the processing components of all this data is very complex. And so working with folks like Skyline software company, Esri software company, and other software companies, we have advanced our processing so that large-scale data collects can be done in a relevant time space to meet warfighters' needs. So when we go collect, we promise the warfighters that within 96 hours, we'll have that data back in their hands. And so we have done an incredible job of being able to turn that around and get them what they need. But it's really all coupled to what all these other elements that I mentioned a few minutes ago, the labs, the S&T community, the commercial industry and whatnot, have been able to offer up so that we could put all this together as a total solution space for the end user.
Well, that is just amazing. So I know that BuckEye has been used recently in some high-profile Corps of Engineer missions, such as the Francis Scott Key Bridge incident in Pennsylvania and the California wildfires. Can you tell us how that program was leveraged in those cases?
Sure. Let's start with the California wildfires. USACE on the civil side has efforts to do large-scale debris management. So when there is such a tragic incident, we're generally called on in support of FEMA or others to do the cleanup. One of the things that they were trying to get at in California was how much debris was actually there. And in order to quantify that, you really needed good data sets, imagery that was very good, and as important, LIDAR, coupled with hyperspectral. So, not hyperspectral, I'm sorry, multispectral. So we put our aircraft up in support of USACE to capture areas that were pertinent in terms of the California wildfire so that they could apply artificial intelligence to the data sets to do empirical calculations of the required debris removal, identify what's still alive, what isn't alive, identify where you would potentially take all that debris for the second order effect in terms of being able to repurpose it and clean it up. And so we looked at data from satellites. Everyone had satellite imagery over the Palisades. We looked at commercial platforms that were flying to support insurance relief because industry also puts up their own aircraft. Those data sets were not captured in the right fidelity to support artificial intelligence demands. We keep forgetting that artificial intelligence requires really precise data sets that are orthorectified and that have enough fidelity to be able to be interrogated by the artificial intelligence. So right now, our folks at UCOP are using that data to run the AI models to do the calculations that eventually will become the product of choice for future debris managers who are going to be tasked with addressing large problem sets. Because at the end of the day, the things that happen, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, those aren't going away for lots of different reasons. So we'll always have to deal with them. So this is part of our efficiency drill to be able to do it better, faster, and bring relief not just to the people that have been disrupted by this, but also not to spend more money than we need to.
Right.
In terms of Francis Scott Key Bridge, that tragic incident, once it happened, everybody flew over it.
Right.
And so what our aircraft had was the ability to capture the details with LIDAR. LIDAR allows precision and accuracy to the data sets that you are using to do engineering takeoffs. That LIDAR was orthorectified, meaning it was correlated to a known position location, which allowed for the engineers and others using those data sets to be able to do their calculations with confidence and be able to say, this is where I'm going to put the crane to lift this piece of metal because based on how we measured that metal, this is potentially its weight, and this is how we're going to move it. We were also able to take data sets that were captured by others, meaning subsurface data sets, and fuse those data sets together with the aerial data sets so that we could give senior leaders a comprehensive three-dimensional view of above and below the surface so they could look at it at any angle while they were trying to debate their decision space, whether that was where do I put a boat with a crane on it, where do I put my people, where can I move things, how do I know which part of the channel is better to use for posturing and so forth. So those are two primary incidents. We've done many, many more, even though it's not part of your question, the border wall.
Right.
When General Semonite was here, we're probably the only organization that has mapped the entire border wall from the beginning to the end. And I don't say border wall, I should say border, with high fidelity imagery and LiDAR that we've made available to DHS and CBP and others. They're able to use those data sets to do all their math and then, quite frankly, be able to take satellite imagery, superimpose it on those data sets to get them to do change detect. That way they don't have to send people. They can take the satellite image, they can put it over a known foundation, and they can look at the change detect and start making resource decisions in real time.
So, in what other ways does this program support the Army's warfighters?
To date, the Army's tactical deployed and deploying systems under the auspice of a term called Mission Command, which is how they actually manage the battlefield, all require maps. They require maps built on data sets that are considered authoritative, standardized, and shareable. That comes from us. We are the entity that actually provides those capabilities to the warfighters. They, contrary to popular belief, they don't go to Google and download a map. They don't go to Waze and try to route through Europe. They use maps built with icons and other symbology that are relevant to operations, maps that have rich features and attributes that allows them to gain terrain dominance. That comes from us. But that's not easily done. That requires a lot of really smart folks. Mm-hmm. That requires a lot of collaboration with the PEOs, the program executive offices that field those systems, because they don't keep a cadre of map makers inside their organizations. They depend on us. So there's an efficiency factor that comes to this in that we are the place, the supermarket for maps. They don't have to worry about it. And so the other piece is that we are also the central point for collaborating with our partners, NGA, USGS, the NATO folks who also depend on these maps, so that when we functionally do our day-to-day business, we are doing it as the subject matter experts on behalf of the Army, for the Army, and for our partners, so they don't have to go recreate this level of effort within their own shops. We learned a long time ago, when you let every organization kind of do its own thing for its own system, you get a whole bunch of stuff that works fairly well for their particular mission, but it doesn't work with each other. They can't move data, they can't share data, they're not all looking at the same common map, they're not, and so forth. So as the Army's capabilities proliferated, meaning we've gone from big systems that sit in an office to smaller systems and vehicle to even smaller systems that are handheld, or the heads-up displays that are a combination of handheld and something that you look through with your eye, we wanted to make sure all those maps, when the folks are operating in and around each other, kind of gave them the same data sets. So letting them each do their own thing is too problematic, it's too expensive, it's inefficient, you can't get the data sets out, they're not standardized, and so forth and so on. So what this place offers is that central shop that builds all those products, tests all those products here inside a node, and then it allows us to proliferate those products to the warfighters. We have several ways of getting those data sets out. One, you can call us. Believe it or not, we still answer the phone. You don't have to go to the internet. You don't have to fill out a magic form. You don't have to wait in queue, and we will help you, whether it's configuring your system or you say, hey, I need a map of this area, we'll get it to you. Two, you can go to our webpage. We have a webpage where you can go in, open it up, draw a box, click the data sets you want, and if it's under 40 gig, you can download it right away, right now. Three, if it's bigger than 40 gig, because say you wanted the entire country of Jordan We'll put it on a hard drive, and we'll FedEx it to you, no matter where you are in the world. We also share our data sets with NGA, the National Geospatial Agency, so they are kind of our backup, and they then can share it with approved coalition partners. Our infrastructure leverages the Red-Eye infrastructure down at UROC. So rather than creating our own infrastructure and increasing cost, we said, hey, where's the best place to put all this stuff so we can operate in a more efficient manner? And lo and behold, we have partnered up with Laura Maxwell and her team, and they have done a great job for us. They're an ERDC entity, and they are supporting all the engineers worldwide. So for us, it's the ability to leverage what's there to support the warfighters, and we think we're doing it in a pretty efficient manner so far.
Fabulous support team. So you talk about collaboration, which is so key in so many ways. So AGC is co-located with one of our ERDC labs, the Geospatial Research Lab, otherwise known as GRL. So what role does the lab play in what your team does to support the Army?
So first, I want to give a massive shout out to ERDC writ large. ERDC has been a tremendous partner in everything we're doing, not just for my group, but for everything else that AGC does. On a local level, in terms of GRL, there are multiple efforts that GRL has helped us. And so we have a motto. We actually have two mottos. One is, it's only work if we do it, and make a great bumper sticker. But the other motto is ABC, adopt before you buy, before you create. ERDC, GRL's LiDAR initiatives have been pinnacle to the advancements of our technology in our aircraft. We are literally, as we speak today, working with them to harvest one of their sensors in one of our Gulf streams to map for the Air Force. We think it's a better proposition. We don't have to buy new technology. It's an inexpensive venture, under a couple million to install it in the jet, and it allows for more rapid CONUS collects using technologies developed by ERDC. More importantly, we point to them when we have problems, as we did with one of our commercial sensors, where we actually brought their subject matter experts to sit with the engineers from a commercial company called Sigma to help resolve why we were seeing issues with the new sensors they built. So aside from depending on them to the technology that they're working on that we can harvest, they're also our subject matter experts. There are other aspects that we've leveraged from GRL. They developed a piece of software called ETP. ETP allows for end users to query terrain data sets to answer problems related to maneuver, climate, soil, whatnot. It is a software that was developed by ERDC, GRL, that is being harvested inside the geospatial workstations used by the GEOINT community. That is also going to be enterprise fielded inside the UROC infrastructure so that other users can get to it. So we depend on GRL for subject matter expertise. We depend on the technology that they're moving forward with. And as important, we have in our building something called the node. The node is our geospatial test lab. We have every system that's fielded at the tactical level running in our node. That node is co-funded by ERDC, and that's where we go in and test how these new standards or these new data sets will behave in the fielded systems. As important, it allows us to bring our commercial partners into the lab so they can test their software against our baselines and how all those data sets would work commensurate with their software in those fielded systems. We found that if you don't have something like this, the trial aspect of doing it without a node is prohibitively expensive. Mm-hmm. It's prohibitively slow. It doesn't give end users what they want. And quite frankly, when you can't deliver to end users in today's environment, they will go around you and buy software or one-off solutions that they can't deploy on scale, but will actually end up causing us more problems when it comes to interoperability and operations. So the node is something that we've grown very accustomed to. It allows us access to the DREN, where we can experiment, which we are doing right now for license dissemination. And so I would say that GRL has been a tremendous partner to us, and ERDC allowing us to do that is phenomenal. The other lab that really doesn't get a lot of attention is the cold region folks up in Hanover. We have spent a lot of time with them in terms of partnering on future drones, future drone capabilities for large Class 3 drones. So Dave Finnegan and his team have been absolutely outstanding in terms of work with. And lastly, I want to give a real big plug to the Coastal Hydraulics Lab. We act as the executive agent for subsurface water to support planning for the joint community. And what that really means in plain speak is when the planners are starting to plan operations of any scale, they traditionally look for where is there water so that the force can have water. And that might mean below surface water, above surface water. So we manage the database and curate it and update it to make sure it's current in terms of how much water is there, how far down do you have to go with a drill rig, do you need to bring pumps in, can they just carry tablets, drop them in the water and drink it? What kind of mining operations are around there, what kind of effluents did they put out? We want to make sure that water is fit for operations. When we get the RFIs to support the posture planning, we depend critically on the folks down at Vicksburg as our partners to help us create those subsurface models or quantify our findings, as well as be the judges of what we put together. So we make sure that when we're telling something to the planners, it's empirical and it's backed up by folks that know what they're talking about. Lastly, we are working with the folks down in Vicksburg to try to come up with a mechanism and a methodology to do hasty assessment of bridges. How much weight can the bridge carry? Can we do it on the fly based on some collected data from an HR3D-like platform or a camera so that you can drive multiple heavy loads over it? Right now, it's a heavy lift with a lot of bridge engineers to quantify. The commanders want it to be done faster. We can't do it on our own. We require the expertise of the folks down in Vicksburg. And so I would say we've been good stewards to try to leverage everything that is underneath the ERDC umbrella of S&T so that we could deliver better products in a more efficient manner.
Well, that's fabulous to hear that your ERDC's, AGC is using multiple ERDC labs to solve those tough challenges. So if you're just tuning in, we're fixing to wrap up here. I have been speaking with George Ohanian. He is the director of Warfighter Support Directorate of the U.S. Army Geospatial Center, otherwise known as AGC. And we've been speaking about BuckEye's Edge, mapping for mission success. And as we wrap up, are there any key takeaways or any other aspects of what your team does that you'd like to highlight today?
Just a few. One, I can't underemphasize the importance of maps. Geography is one of the very few things that allows humans to look at something, see all the things of importance to them, roads, vehicles, airfields, gas stations, coffee shops, munitions depot, what have you, and then use that view to correlate and make decisions against. We take maps for granted on the military side because we feel like they just show up. It takes a lot of work to make a map. Google, Apple, Microsoft, they spent a lot of money on this. People will throw out billions. I don't know exactly how much they spent. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. But they spend a lot of money not just building the map apps, but also constantly collecting the data to make it updated. Mm-hmm. And so we shouldn't take it for granted. I know that we're map makers and we're zealot about the art and science, and it just sounds like we're waving our own flag. But we fight on a map in the Army. We make decisions on a map in the Army. We gain ground, we identify what that ground is, and we own that ground on a map. We've got to pay more attention to maps. There are a lot of folks within ERDC, AGC, and other components of the Army making sure that map is good, and we want to evolve that map from just people to machines. My team is working on that right now, but in collaboration with a whole bunch of other folks. I wanted to emphasize that because I think it's incredibly important. Lastly, I think the collaboration that we're doing meets the new guidance that the administration is looking for, which is be more efficient, be more expeditious, make sure you're supporting the force. We've been doing that. This isn't something new to us or the people that we work with. We are very conscientious and very dedicated to achieving that end result. And we're doing it with our partners. And so I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate the role that ERDC plays in this and the partnership that they've had with us. And I look forward to continuing to evolving the technology that we think is critical to future warfighting.